Let's go ahead and add a 2-car garage to our A-frame house. And keep in mind that these assembly methods might not work in your area. And there are other ways to attach a 2-car garage to an A-frame house. And I will be providing you with a couple of more examples of that in our series. So here we're going to use a roof cricket to provide the drainage we're going to need so that water doesn't accumulate in this area. And for those of you who live in areas where it snows, this might not be the best method either. And we're just taking a quick tour here of the building. I like to show you what it's going to look like and then tear it apart and show you how it might be assembled. Now we are going to move the garage 1.5 inches away from the A-frame building. And the reason for that had to do with my original blocking I was going to use. And I will also go over that in a future video as to why I didn't use that blocking. And you can always move your garage farther away or closer. And I had to add another section of the rafter over here so that we could have some backing for the sheathing and fascia board. And you can see here where the rafters on this side are cut different than the ones in between the garage and the building. And another thing this garage is not going to have will be a door going into the house or a door going into the backyard. And the reason for that was because the garage ceiling was a little low, almost too low for comfort to allow a door to be installed in between the garage and the house. So I'm going to go ahead and raise the walls in a future video and put a door in. Next up, let's go ahead and remove the blocks to provide you with a better view of the rafters. And since I left a gap here, we might need to install some type of screening or some type of a board to prevent rodents from coming into this section of the building. And the block is going to reduce or prevent any ventilation here. This is where a screen might work better. However, I will leave that up to you. Sometimes you put a screen in and that isn't enough, especially for smaller insects. It might prevent a raccoon from going in there, but it's not going to prevent small insects from entering that area. Next up, let's take a look at the wall framing here. For those of you who need more information on how this particular garage is built, go to the website, click on the garage building link, and you will find a bunch of different designs for a 2-car garage. You don't need to just stick with this one. Next up, let's go ahead and install our ceiling joist. And these are going to be 24 inches on center. And if you're going to install drywall, you might want to space them 16 inches on center. And if you notice, I lined up the ceiling joist so that they would connect to the rafters and position the roof rafters so that they would connect to all of the rafters in the A-frame, providing us with a nice solid structural connection between the A-frame house and the garage. And I will be providing you with a different example of connecting that together in a future video. And in case I didn't mention it, the roof rafters will be spaced 24 inches on center in the A-frame and in the garage. And our backing board here will provide us with some nailing for a 2x4 we're going to attach on top of the roof sheathing to fill this area in here so that we could install our siding or stucco, whatever our wall covering is going to be. And you can always bolt these together like we did with the rafter ties here, or I would imagine you could use at least 6 to 8 16D nails to fasten these two boards together, along with your ceiling joist or rafter ties to the rafters. And you might need to put a little more thought into how you're going to lay all of these rafters out so that they connect together and work well with the roof sheathing. Now I chose to install this rafter on top of the sheathing instead of setting it on top of the rafter. And that's going to have more to do with having the roof sheathing on this building here work out a little bit better than it would have if I notched around it. And we're going to go ahead and install some blocks here, 2x4, 2x6, whatever you feel like you need to use. And the upper section of the blocks will be shaped a little bit. However, these blocks could also be installed a little different if you don't feel like shaping them. And of course, our rafter blocks in the garage will be shaped to provide us with a nice tight structural connection between the sheathing, rafters, and the blocks. Next up, let's go ahead and install our roof sheathing. We are going to extend the sheathing over a little bit so that we can install our wall here. And I like to have my wall sit on top of the sheathing. You could always set the lower framing plate on top of the backing or the roof rafters. And you could always install some additional support backing up here too. Attach a 2x4 to the bottom of the rafter here if you're looking for a little more nailing at the upper section of the framing studs. Next up, let's go ahead and install our lookouts and our fascia board. And you might need a larger gap between the fascia board and the roof sheathing, depending upon how you're going to finish the roofing. And you can see here where we have a little bit of nailing. We could always move these blocks over a little bit if we want more nailing to attach the roof sheathing to these blocks. And you could always put a block here, again, depending upon how this area is going to be finished with your roofing materials. Next up, let's go ahead and pan out, get a view of the roof and the fascia board here. And of course, we're going to have the same situation on this side that we had on the other side. A view from the back. And you can see here where it wouldn't be difficult to put a door in either over here or over here if you wanted a door going into the backyard. Next up, let's go ahead and install the roof sheathing. And then we can go ahead and lay out our roof drainage cricket and install the shaped support rafters here. And we're going to space these 2 foot on center so that we can get some nice solid nailing into the existing rafters that are also spaced 24 inches on center. And I do have more videos on how to build a roof cricket if you're looking for that, need a little more information on that. And that's about it for this particular design. Keep in mind this is part of a playlist, and there should be a link to that playlist in the video description area, along with some of our other playlists. Make sure you check all of those playlists out also.